This is my Ring of Honor HDNet episode 3 thoughts. I was going to do this earlier this week, but I finally just got to watch the episode the other night. Overall, thought it was another solid show from Ring of Honor on HDNet. As far as the first 3 shows, it's probably the best one so far, especially with having the best main event and, in my opinion, a match of the year candidate, especially for TV-wise. It's definitely a good show for Ring of Honor. Show started off before the first match with Dave Prazak and Mike Hogwood, and they were doing a breaking news segment saying that Nigel McGuinness lost the title to Jerry Lynn at the Houston, Texas show on April 3rd, the night before this show aired. So definitely glad that they, acknowledged Jerry Lynn winning the title and defeating Nigel McGuinness. Now, I know a lot of people, and especially probably a lot of people on the Ring of Honor message board, and a couple other people are probably still pissed off that Jerry Lynn was the one to defeat Nigel McGuinness. I really don't have no problem with it. I've always been a fan of Jerry Lynn, so I don't really have no problem with him defeating Nigel McGuinness. And the one thing you got to think of this title reign for Jerry Lynn, he's not going to have a long title run. After Nigel McGuinness had about a 17 to 18 month title run, the person after it, which is Jerry Lynn, he's going to have pretty much a transitional title run. I highly doubt that, he's going to hold the title more than probably a month and a half to 2 months at tops. That's probably the longest I see him holding the title in. Then Jerry Lynn will lose the title to a, younger star, possibly, Tyler Black. I know that's the one person that a lot of people do want to see hold the Ring of Honor title at some point or another. I think Tyler Black is, ready by the middle of this year or sometime later on to hold on to the Ring of Honor title. I definitely think he's worthy of it. And like I said, don't really have no problem with Jerry Lynn. Glad they acknowledged this. Obviously, they couldn't show a clip from the Ring of Honor show since it was just the night before. Hopefully, maybe I'm pretty sure that I don't know if they'll acknowledge it on the April 17th pay-per-view since that show was done back at the end of January. I don't think they'll acknowledge, Nigel McGuinness losing the title there. But probably maybe on one of these HDNet episodes, possibly before the next set of tapings. Hopefully, maybe they'll show a couple clips from that match to, put over Jerry Lynn as the new champion. So, because that's the one thing I'm wondering, because I know they're not going to put on the June pay-per-view. I know they're probably, since that pay-per-view was the night after Jerry Lynn won the title, I highly doubt that they're going to, throw on the Nigel McGuinness versus Jerry Lynn match from the night before and throw it on that pay-per-view, even though I wouldn't have a problem with that, because I think, something like a title change, that's something you're going to want to maybe put on pay-per-view, but you got to think, that's going to be one thing to help the DVD sales for Supercard of Honor 4 as well. They can hype it up, not titles only, just change it pay-per-views. You have to see the other shows as well, so obviously them doing that could, help out DVD sales at the same time, especially, promoting it on HDNet as well. The first match was Sterling James Keenan versus Erick Stevens. This was a decent opener. That's the one thing, out of all these HDNet episodes so far and some of the recent Ring of Honor events, even though they're good shows, they really don't have, excellent openers like they did during Gabe Sapolsky's era. Adam Pearce kind of books it in a way where he, puts more emphasis on the second part of the show, which kind of makes sense, but I always feel, you have to have a good opener even on, a TV show. Since Ring of Honor is supposed to be an alternative anyway, it'd be okay to, have, some, great tag match or some, great singles match for the opener, get people into the show. But this was a decent opener. Erick Stevens picks up the victory after hitting the Dr. Mom. It was about a 7-minute match, so it got a good decent amount of time and, put over Erick Stevens. Then after this, they went to a backstage promo with Bryan Danielson. Pretty good promo from him, pretty much, saying, he's one of the, veterans of Ring of Honor, has been there since day one, and, putting over their past feud that him and Austin Aries has had against each other, and saying, he's going to prove to the HDNet audience that he is the best in the world. Then the next matchup was a tag team match, which out of the first 3 episodes, is the first tag match, so glad you finally get some tag team action here with Cheech and Cloudy of Up in Smoke versus the Dark City Fight Club. And I'm definitely glad these 2 tag teams, getting showcased on HDNet. I wouldn't mind seeing Cheech and Cloudy on Ring of Honor more frequently. They more or less work, Shakara and some CCW at times and other indies, and they really have improved greatly since, their past times in Ring of Honor in 2003 and 2004 when they were a part of Special K. And Dark City Fight Club, this is the first time I have seen them in action, so I can't really judge them too much because this was more or less just a squash match, and this was a perfect example how a tag team squash match should be done. It was about a 2.5 to maybe 3 minute match with the Dark City Fight Club pretty much dominating Cheech and Cloudy the whole time. You got Cheech and Cloudy a little offense, but not that much to really, hurt the Dark City Fight Club and really put the Dark City Fight Club as far as a dominant team, definitely put them over. And they won after hitting a set down powerbomb neckbreaker combination to Cheech. And, this was a good example of a squash match. When you want to do a squash match, this is like a perfect example of how a tag team squash match should be. It felt kind of like some of the old school Jim Crockett NWA squash matches from back in the 80s. That's what kind of squash match it felt like, or any of the ones on WCW Clash of the Champions when they had tag team squash matches on there. So it was a perfect example of a squash match and really put over the Dark City Fight Club, and it does look like they're going to be on more Ring of Honor shows more frequently, so really put them over as a dominant tag team. Then after this, they went to a backstage promo with Austin Aries. So the main event of the show was Austin Aries versus Bryan Danielson. And that's the one good thing they've been doing with all three shows so far, is really putting emphasis on the main event, putting it over as a very important match. Now, the one thing I will agree with a lot of people, the criticism of the first three shows, or any of the criticism with the show so far, is they don't really have enough storyline elements within the show, which that is somewhat of a problem, because I do think, you need to have some storyline involvement in the show to make a lot of the matches, seem important, or for casual fans to say, okay, this is why this is happening, instead of just, having match, and a lot of the matches not really having any purpose. Now, don't have no problem with, the shows getting a lot of good in-ring time, but I think, you need to have some emphasis on storyline involvement as well, but not take it too far a degree that it's like WWE or TNA where, most of your shows just storylines and talking and only 10 minutes is action. I don't want to see that. You need to have a good mix of both within your show, now, they do a good job on their pay-per-views and their, regular events, but they haven't really done it with their TV shows, and that's kind of a hard thing to do because the TV shows are kind of like an off project of the pay-per-views and DVDs. They really don't go together, so that's probably why it's kind of hard to, think of doing storylines for these, but they definitely need to do them for future shows when they tape the next set of tapings. Now, the next matchup was Chris Hero versus Necro Butcher. This was just like the opener, a pretty solid match. It was better than the opener, though. Good back-and-forth stuff with Necro Butcher and Chris Hero. I think it put over Necro Butcher, even though Necro Butcher lost this match to Chris Hero. Chris Hero won using a loaded elbow pad, hitting the roar and elbow to Necro Butcher. So it put over, Sweet and Sour Incorporated and Chris Hero being like the heels that, win by any means necessary, and it didn't hurt Necro Butcher to do the job in this match. Now, it would have hurt him if he, would have lost this match, fairly to Chris Hero. That would have hurt him, but since he, Chris Hero did a cheap tactic to win this match, it didn't hurt him. Then after the match, the crowd was cheering for Necro Butcher while Necro Butcher was going backstage, and they were chanting, "Where's your Oscar?" Talking about him and they really put over, Necro Butcher in his promos and a couple of cheap plugs for the movie The Wrestler and Necro Butcher's involvement in The Wrestler, which makes sense for them doing. I don't really have no problem with them doing like cheap plugs for the movie. It makes sense. It got Ring of Honor a lot of good coverage, especially since the movie was very successful as well. Then the next match, which was the main event of the evening, was Austin Aries versus Bryan Danielson. And this by far was the best of the main events of the first three shows. And this is the first of the main events for HDNet, or first matches on HDNet for Ring of Honor that I could consider a match of the year candidate. I normally do not want to give, TV matches, star ratings unless the match really delivers and you have to consider it for, a match of the year candidate. In this case, this match does deserve, a star rating. I would give it about a 3.5 star match. It was very good stuff, good back and forth stuff between Austin Aries and Bryan Danielson, like you would expect. Now, was it as great as, there are other matches in the past? No, but it was, a very good TV main event, and I think it really put over Bryan Danielson and Austin Aries being the two top wrestlers within your company, which was the main emphasis of why this match was happening. These two wanted to prove, which one was the better wrestler, and very good match here. Now, the end of the match kind of went a little quick. I think maybe they could have went, maybe a minute or two longer, and it would have been a little better. Pretty much went with Bryan Danielson putting Austin Aries into the triangle choke. Austin Aries tried to get it out of it once, then got in the middle of the ring and tapped out to the triangle choke from Bryan Danielson. Very good match here for people, that if this is the first, Bryan Danielson versus Austin Aries match you have seen, this is just a little taste of how good they work together in any other past shows, especially, Survival of the Fittest from 2004, Testing the Limit, their 2 out of 3 falls, incredible 75-minute match they had with each other. Their 2 out of 3 falls matches they had back. Their best 2 out of 3 series they had back in 2007, which all those matches were excellent matches. And just every match they've had against each other has been very good. Now, this was probably, the worst of them because I think it, should have been given a couple more minutes longer if they could have maybe done it. Because they didn't use up their whole entire hour for the HDNet programming. This show went probably about 53, 54 minutes roughly, so they had a couple more minutes to be given if they wanted to. But good, solid, match for HDNet, and so far the best main event they've had on the first 3 shows. And definitely, I would recommend people to check this out. Obviously, if you haven't already, I would recommend you to go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube user ROH Brazil. He uploads the episodes of Ring of Honor on HDNet. Now, you're going to have to wait till Wednesday if you don't have HDNet, or if you don't want to get it through other means like file sharing, you just want to wait to get it and see it on YouTube that Wednesday, then just go ahead and subscribe to him. I would subscribe to him even if you check the shows out on HDNet or, download the episodes, just, to show that, there's a lot of people having interest in the show. And maybe with that, they'll get a better TV deal at some point or another. And maybe HDNet will extend them to a 2-hour deal some point down the line after they're on there for about, half a year or a year, and show that more people want to check out the show. So definitely subscribe to ROH Brazil if you haven't already. And for anyone that hasn't seen episode 1, 2, or 3 yet, I'll put the playlist for all 3 of those episodes in the description so you can watch them in full. And yeah, that's it for my thoughts on Ring of Honor's 3rd episode, the April 4th, 2009 edition on HDNet. Like I said, pretty solid show.